This video is over the topic 14 practice questions. This is looking at data collection. So what you'll be asked about data collection is just mostly multiple choice, looking at types of data and information about the best way to choose a sample. So this practice question, Joe wants to find the average running speed of college students in Indiana. He plans to collect the times of 32 Ivy Tech students running one lap on a track and use the average of their times. So what is the population? The population is the group he's mainly interested in, which would be college students in Indiana, but you also have to look at the actual sample. Let's jump ahead. The sample size is the 32 here. The 32 Ivy Tech students is the sample. Generally speaking, if you have the sample information, if you replace the number with the word all, that gives you the population. So because he is only choosing students from Ivy Tech, then it would have to be considered, can that actually apply to all college students in Indiana? Is there anything about Ivy Tech students that would make them not an accurate representation of all college students in Indiana? A few things to consider would be Ivy Tech tends to have more non-traditional students, which would be then a higher age on average. And running, I think, is something that kind of peaks at a fairly young age, so they'd be more likely not as fast potentially. So older students, not necessarily old in the sense of elderly, but older than 18, 19, 20, whatever. So that would potentially affect. Something that may or may not have an effect is that Ivy Tech is mostly in-state students, so in-state versus out-of-state or international. So if there's potentially something about people from Indiana that would make them have a different average running speed compared to if you add in people from other states or other countries. Another thing is that other colleges in Indiana typically have sports programs where Ivy Tech does not. So that could also affect the general sort of athleticism of students within that school. So those would be things to consider, that possibly those Ivy Tech students aren't necessarily going to be a sample that can be considered to be representative of all college students in Indiana. Now, you'll have questions like this: which of the following units could be used? I've added bold for the unit of measurement. This isn't asking what would actually make sense to use. This is asking, we're measuring time here. So he's measuring, finding the average of their times. So what could be used to measure time? Minutes could be used, hours could be used. So you're not thinking about which one of those you would actually choose. Like, you're probably not going to state the amount of time it takes somebody to run one lap around a track in hours, but you could. So you're choosing that. So you're selecting all of that type of measurement. And then you have things like which of these would be the best way to find the average time. So he has these 4 options. And as you look at these options, let's look at what's similar and different in them. So we have measure the times in 2 of these versus state their own times. So if you think about that, which of those would be better? Would be for an independent observer to measure the times. If they state their own times, there's going to be potentially inconsistencies in the measurement, or at worst, they just misstate their own time to make themselves look better or whatever that could happen. So we want to measure the times, either Joe, the person doing the research, or even, as I said, an independent person or maybe a couple of people doing the timing that can make sure that it's consistent throughout for all runners. Then the other contrast we have here is asking for volunteers. So volunteers versus randomly picking. So again, here what we would want to do is randomly pick rather than ask for volunteers. Even randomly picking, they have to actually agree to it. But if you just ask for volunteers, you're probably going to get people that enjoy running, therefore, that are probably faster than those that would not volunteer. By volunteering, at least you're somewhat more likely to get a good mix of all of the range of possibilities. You're still probably going to have some people that just don't want to do it at all, that would still make your average be probably somewhat high compared to the actual average just on that basis. But we do want not volunteers, but we want to randomly pick. With multiple choice, generally find a way to eliminate all but one answer rather than trying to find one that works. Find some reason that all of the others don't work as well. So we have narrowed down to this randomly pick 32 students to run a lap and measure their times. So that's data collection questions. There's also information in this topic about different types of data. I think that might come up more in the next topic. Yeah, okay, so yeah. So this is just looking at choosing the sample.